Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Life as a Chad YouTube channel. And I got to say, I am very optimistic regarding the growth this channel has received right off the bat. You know, not that it's a huge deal, but I certainly appreciate it. My dude, Kai Schwemmer, gave me a couple of retweets. He seems like a pretty cool guy, pretty chill dude. And the reality is that in the YouTube or online sphere, you're certainly going to come up against, I don't want to say jealousy, but well, jealousy or whatever it is, just a non-desire to help anyone else out but yourself. And Kai and Politically Provoked both helped me out, and so I want to say thank you. That is awesome, absolutely class act, and all around just awesome. So I want to give them props on that. Now to the crux of this video. I just came across this morning and it was gold, and I hope I don't get copyrighted for this. I hope Nick sees this, and Beardson, although Beardson seems like a guy who occasionally would be the jealous type, like I said. Not saying he's a bad guy, not saying that, just saying that he might be the type of guy who's like, I ain't giving you a retweet. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm gonna copyright your ass. But it was gold. And Kai Schwemmer on a few, I don't know if it was multiple shows or just one show. I think it was You Are Here. Basically, and I don't want to put words into his mouth, but I'm trying to sum this up without looking into it too much. I'm sure you guys are aware of this, but Kai basically said that he is not an incel and that he thinks that being an incel can be as problematic as being a simp. Okay. And if we take a look here at what incel means, a member of an online community of young men who consider themselves unable to attract women sexually, typically associated with views that are hostile toward women and men who are sexually active. Now, Nick Fuentes, my dude Nick Fuentes, has said on multiple occasions, and actually he said this in a recent video, that he is not an incel because an incel cannot on any terms attract a woman, well, somebody from the opposite sex, a female. And I think we all know that Nick probably could, Kai probably could, at the very least, you know, a chick from the streets, at the very least, he could probably make that happen. So I would agree that they are both not incels. And so Kai said what he said, and Nick had some problems with that. Now, before I play the audio, I do also want to say that I do think that Nick came to this somewhat biased. I think he potentially, how do I say this? I think he potentially was more riled up than he should have been. Not to say he was riled up or overly riled up, but I think he came into it with somewhat of a lean or somewhat of a bias, as opposed to having all of the information, exactly what Kai said, because, well, the internet can stir people up quite easily. And I think the internet did facilitate some stir craziness in my dude Nick. And so they have a conversation. I think this is Beardson's channel. that they have the conversation on. And I also want to say, before we watch this, that I think it is awesome, absolutely awesome, that three men can come together on this stream and talk without any woman present or anything like that, and talk it out in a logical, stoic, relaxed manner. If you look back at, the boomer generation, the Gen X generation, that was basically the dismantling of masculine unity, male unity, and being able to say anything contrary to this matriarchal, feminine society. So that is that. Now, before we watch this, I want to ask you guys to smash that subscribe button because, well, subscribing makes you feel good. And at the very least, like, comment, share. You know the drill. And without further ado,
maybe I'm okay being
out. Real quick, one more thing. Well, no, let's watch this and then I'll remember. I have something that I remember Rollo Tomasi saying, because the crux of this argument is Nick saying that he will not do anything to good or bad. He's just going to live his life and without any motivation for the opposite sex moving him forward or propelling him towards anything. And I think that's awesome. I do. That is what Rollo Tomasi talks about when he talks about living your life, living your purpose, and having people become part of your frame, a part of your world, as opposed to vice versa. And the reality is, in modern day America, most men are immediately becoming a part of the woman's frame, as opposed to vice versa. So let's check this out.
Perceived like by Young Turks and by Ethan Klein and all them as like a low status.
Let's back this up a little bit.
Sort of like a man asserting himself, because people have conflated this thing where they say like, the highest status male is a real ladies' man, the man that has the things that women like. And
which is not true. I would say it's somewhat true, but in my opinion, high status men, the highest status men are the men, not even with necessarily the best looks, although sometimes that's the case, but it's their mentality. They are so on their purpose that you can smell it on them. They are so divinely on their purpose. You would think God was right next to them, encouraging them to mount up and, and get going, which is awesome.
Sort of inverting this.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, no, fuck that actually, because now you've got all these guys that are, bending over backwards to make themselves pleasing to women and meet their sort of arbitrary expectations. And I'm saying, no, maybe I'm okay being perceived like by Young Turks and by Ethan Klein and all them as like a low status weirdo who's like
See, Nick's saying high status, low status, it makes no difference because he is on his purpose. And incel, not incel, it makes no difference because ultimately his goal is to get men off the teat, so to speak, and start living their own purpose as well.
Psycho, and they write these articles, even his mom's afraid of him and shit like that. It's like, I'm owning it because if I even cared one iota about the voluntary sex, I wouldn't be doing this. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, no,
And now we got Kai, Big Balla Kai. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
I think, again, you and I agree a lot more on this than the masses have convinced.
True. I would agree with that. I think that Nick and Kai are right next to each other, and you're about to see this. The only difference, and I don't even know if this is a difference because ultimately I think Nick agrees with this, is that Kai believes that you can become too incelish, if that's a word, And it can become as problematic as being a simpy simp. And ultimately, the Bible tells us to be fruitful and multiply, and that we should not be ashamed of enjoying and thinking it is beautiful to be with someone who is your wife, who is your partner, who God calls you to have sex with.
and that's why I think this is, honestly, I believe it's a very manufactured issue. It's manufactured content, because I agree with so much of that. I say it all the time. Like, you've heard me say this before. One of the copes that tall people come up with, and actually the one I hear most often, is not, oh, I could read.
By the way, there is something in this that Beardson says and that Nick says, that as a former Division I water polo player myself, let me see if I can pull up a picture so you guys don't doubt me here. Let's go. Let's go. Gotta love it. Look at your boy right there. That's let's check this one out too. This is look at that. Look at the shoulder right there. Let's go. So there is something that I do somewhat disagree with. Beardson and Nick think that guys who work out, that it is basically homosexual, and that it is mostly about attracting women, as opposed to just doing it for yourself because it's awesome. And I think in general, Nick and Beardson aren't super big on working out in general because, well, let's be honest, they don't do that themselves. Not really. So
reach things that are higher. Oh, powerful men throughout history have been tall. We hear just, well, women like men who are taller. So I 100% agree that men need to reorient their value system, not to be around women, but just to be around things that are good and will make you, like you said, a winner. And
I could not agree more with what Kai just said there. Matter of fact, I did a video on it, that if you are a young man, you must just continue to live your life and be on your purpose. Fail, not with women, but fail with the things that you strive for. And again, find your purpose. Don't even worry about your intersexual dynamics and things like that, because ultimately it doesn't matter, and it's going to slow you down on your purpose.
And another thing,
Manless are better.
I'm 100% with you in the sentiment of like doing things just because, they make you a winner and because they're cool or whatever, even if women don't like it. I do this with like the way I dress a lot of the time. There were people who came up to me and they're like, yeah, a lot of these women at like the America Fest event were like, Kai would be so hot if he didn't wear all these like really cringy suits, because I wear like that 70s suit with like the.
And Kai's going to basically say here, I don't care one way or the other if a woman finds what I wear attractive or not. What I think is awesome is what matters, and that's what I'm going to do.
I forget what it is. It's like a suede almost on the breasts. And, people like TR Sartor, they're like, yo, that suit is awesome. And I'm like, yeah, it's like very 70s. And I don't care that women don't like it. I wear it because I think it looks cool. It's identifiable. There's a bit of like, aesthetic nostalgia within it. And I just think it's fun. It's something I enjoy. I had it tailored, it's something I take care of. So
it is so awesome to look sharp and to look tailored and, just clean cut and smooth, really, for no other reason, but it's just awesome.
I'm right there with you, man. I'm not the one saying like, you need to change everything you do to adhere to women. And the people who are blowing it up to seem that way, I think, are really just manufacturing a crisis where it doesn't exist. But fundamentally, my perspectives on like relationships and sex just coincide with that of the Bible, with that of God.
Here it is.
I do think it is important.
Here is Kai's this is his clarification of what he said. And well, let's listen to it.
To strike up wholesome relationships, I don't think you need to sacrifice yourself to do so. I think there is a valuable statement to be made in doing things expressly because women don't like them, but I think ultimately we do need to multiply and replenish the earth.
I could not agree more with Kai. Kai just nailed it there. Ultimately, the Bible says to be fruitful and multiply, which as a man, you must do. But he's also saying one way or the other, whether they like it or dislike it, he will not have any behavior one way or the other, negative or positive, that is done out of the main motivation being the woman. Okay. Anything that is done, the main motivation is himself as a man.
I don't think there's anything wrong in that.
I need to interject here. So who's the shirtless lifting TikToks for?
You think I do that?
Oh, Beardson, this is such a cope, dude. This really sounds like a cope from Beardson. You know, it's, dude, just get in the gym, Beardson. You would be so much more awesome if you were buff. Let's go.
For women? You think I do that for women?
So are you doing it for men then?
Yes. Yeah, no, not for men's pleasure, not for their attraction, but because there is a niche community of lifters who admire the perfection of the physical form. Not like, oh, bro, you're so sexy looking. That's what gay people do. Weightlifting and the perfection of your form, the idea of crafting a physique, is not gay. And I think anybody who pulls that out is being a little bit subversive. I mean, of course.
I agree totally. If we look at some of the best time periods for men, one of the things men bonded over was physical fitness and the uplifting and just pushing for the best that you can make yourself. And again, it is something that men bond over. And in my experience, again, as a former Division I athlete, the single best thing you can do as a man to not be overly simpish is to work out and be on your purpose. Now, if your motivation for working out is simply to attract the opposite sex, well, that's a pretty flimsy motivation. But if your motivation is to be the best you can be, to be healthy, and to bond and be the epitomization of what you think a man is by being buff or in good shape, that's awesome. I couldn't agree with that and be behind that more myself. I think it is essential. And the reality is that, and I saw this because I'm 20, how old am I? Anyways, I am right on the cusp of millennial and Gen Z. I'm right on the cusp, but I am technically a millennial. And one thing that separated me from my buddies, or a majority of men my age, was my aggressiveness towards working out and improving athletically. I virtually could care less about video games. And that is something that Gen Z men and millennial men, gaming has replaced what working out used to be. And I'm not sure I'm necessarily up for that or behind that. I think working out is the single best thing that a man can do to help himself out.
I think it's a little
the most.
I think
and it's not GAY. It's not. It's just not. There is nothing GAY about wanting to see how far you can push yourself physically, see how far you're internally you can go, how much you can push yourself, and the results. It's awesome to see the results of your hard work. And like I said, I have met so many awesome people through athletic events, whether it's running a race, a 5K, whether it's a basketball game, a water polo game, lifting at the gym, whatever it is. I have met so many awesome people through that. And I think it's a great way to be out in the community, which God calls us to do. I think it's a great way to stay in shape. And I think it's a great way to be on your purpose as a man. I don't think in any way it is GAY. I totally disagree with Beardson there. And I think what he's saying is a major, major cope.
It's a little gay. I'm sorry.
Fair enough, but
we're derailing a little bit. We can
See,
get.
and if Beardson ends up watching this, I hope he doesn't take this the wrong way, because I think he's a pretty cool guy, and I think all these guys are cool guys. But a guy like Beardson is a guy who, I mean, he might have been physically fit or active at some point in his life, but let's be honest, it's likely that Beardson grew up as a nerd, and his view is of working out and the type of guys that work out is probably rooted in some sort of jealousy or cope, and therefore he calls it GAY, when it's like, dude, is working out any more GAY than sitting in front of a stream with little fanboys watching you and giving you money like an e-girl, or playing video games while guys watch you giving you money like an e-girl, or playing video games in general? Is that any less? I would argue it's probably more GAY than working out. There's nothing more masculine than lifting weights and being in shape.
Get into that. Let me just explore this a little bit.
I mean, by the way, well, hold on. This is important to step in. Beardson's gonna say that I'm the one with the misogynist, or with the woman forward lifting account. My
Excuse me.
account literally has a video where I'm expressing that I'm a misogynist, expressing that I have a low body count, which is 0, by the way. I express that publicly on the same account, which supposedly is trying to capture the interest of women, following the Beardson train of thought.
Excuse me. So let's restore a little bit here to the old conversation. But the problem is, you said in the stream, you said like, well, if we get too into this incel stuff, then we can't get married.
Which I think is somewhat true. I really do. I mean, some of the things Nick has said is pushing on. I mean, Nick has said I've seen it in some of his videos, and he jokes about getting to the point where he, being around a woman would be more of a chore than an actual pleasure. Which I agree with somewhat, but again, there's always an extreme to any type of thing that you do, and there is an extreme to incelish behavior. We're going to listen to a little bit more of this.
And it doesn't that kind of challenge and undermine everything you just said, which is like, well, my position coincides with yours, because I think that men should do things because they're good, but at the same time, you're saying, well, but if we get too incel, well, then women aren't going to like that, and then we can't get married. And
no, that's not what he's saying. Kai is not saying that if you become too incelish, women won't like that. What Kai is, in fact, he's saying the opposite. Kai is saying that for the men, becoming too incelish will be harmful for the men.
We got to get married. And I'm saying, married, not married, damn the consequences. Let us do what is incel. Let us do what is right. I may get married. I may not. I'm equally okay with either outcome. What I'm focused on is...
Listen, I'm an Orthodox Christian. I've been a Christian my whole life. The reality is, Nick is, in my opinion, he's fooling himself if he thinks, and I'm not saying it's wrong to not get married and multiply. I'm not saying it's wrong, okay? I'm not. But what I am saying is to basically act like it. I mean, I would just say that it clearly does call for that in the Bible, to multiply. And the question that I would ask for Nick is, what is the point of his movement if he doesn't have an offspring to teach it to? Because again, even in the Bible, it also calls for that, to teach the ways that are good to your offspring. And if the groypers, or us, let's say righteous or trying to do good people, don't multiply. It's kind of like the movie Idiocracy, where only the dumb and white trash and ghetto people, they are the only ones multiplying. And it's like, ultimately, if we don't pass on what we believe and multiply our goodness, our awesomeness, then this is going to die. This movement is going to die out in the next 20 years.
Being creative. What I'm focused on is being a righteous political revolutionary. And so you do these weaselly little deals where you go, well, my position is just that of the Bible. Oh, well, who could fucking disagree with the Bible? I think you're extrapolating a little bit from the Bible, actually.
What part? What part's extrapolated?
When you say this stuff about like, you say be fruitful and multiply. Okay, but it also says in the Bible, actually, if I'm not mistaken, that it's better if you don't get married. I'm pretty sure it says that in St. Paul.
Where does it say that?
Where does it say that,
Nick?
What part?
Nick, where does it say that, my dude? My dude. And by the way, guys, I am not trying to trash Nick here. I think Nick is what he's doing. I agree with him on 99.9999% of things.
Because I can pull up the commandment from God where he tells us to do that in Genesis.
From God.
So if you can pull up the verse in Paul, but
I know you're a Mormon, but in the Catholic tradition, the holiest people and the ecclesiastical authority are not married. The Pope's not married. The priests aren't married. The bishop.
Yeah, but again, Nick, those are priests. Those are bishops. Are you a priest? Are you a bishop? No, you're not. You're a streamer. That the bishops and the priests, those are unique circumstances. And I guess you could say for Nick, being the leader of a movement is unique in and of itself. Okay, I understand that. And I'll give him credit for that. But I still think it's apples and oranges.
Bishops aren't married. They're not married. They're not having kids. And people quickly say, "Oh, well, they're pedophiles, they're gay, or whatever."
No, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case.
Well, I know, but I'm saying that to address, a knee-jerk response from some people. But point being is, I think we also have to point out there's this theological divide too, where in your religion, there's this thing where you have to get married and you have to have kids. Catholics don't have that. I mean, of course, we think that marriage is good. It's a sacrament. I didn't say, but it's not a moral imperative like it is.
Of our canon.
But it's not a moral imperative like it is for the Mormons.
I would agree that Mormons hold the idea of marriage and having children.
They do. Mormons really, really do. Like I said in one of my previous videos, where I went to high school, I grew up around a shite ton of Mormons.
To maybe a higher esteem, or we make it a more fundamental part of our theology and of our canon than the Catholic Church does. But from my understanding, also people in the chat are saying 1 Corinthians 7.
Yeah.
Which one? 7:11? Or which verse?
Now to the unmarried and the widows, I say, it is good for them to stay unmarried as I am. But if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. So the point I'm trying to make, I'm not a theologian, but the point I'm trying to make is you say this stuff about, oh, well, my position's just the Bible. It's like, well, you're...
All right, let's end it there. Let's wrap it up. I've probably already taken too much of their content, but I think they'll be okay with it. But this is what I will say, okay? Number one, I think it is awesome, the conversation that these three awesome men are having. And I think that at the crux of it, that is the most important thing. The bond that ultimately, that is the biggest thing we need to get back to, which is men creating things and communing together and having fellowship with one another. Okay. So that's number one. I think this is awesome. Number two, I think ultimately Kai and Nick are neck and neck on this. I think they both agree on nearly everything. And especially at the core of it they both believe and do not want men to be doing things and having certain behavior with the ultimate motivation being woman. Okay. And I could not agree with that more. But the difference is, and I think maybe Nick is taking this slightly personally, is that Kai thinks that, well, irregardless, the Bible still calls us to marry, so we still need to try and do that. And Nick is saying that that's not necessarily the case. You don't necessarily need to. And I would say I probably lean more with Kai, that the way I see it is that if you want your message and you want, which is family, tradition, community, if you want that message to carry onward and carry forward, the best way to do it is to have offspring and kids to teach it to, so that the message carries on even after you. Now, Nick could say to me, well, Nolan, even if I don't marry, my message will still be within millions of other people, and they can teach their kids and their kids can teach that. So it doesn't necessarily matter if I do it, which I would agree with. But just looking at it in a vacuum, I would say that that is the biggest reason that should be the end goal, is to be married and teach these things down to further generations. Now, ultimately, these guys are totally neck and neck, and neither of them are incels. Neither of them are actually incels, because if they wanted to, they could both have some belongs to the street type of chick. Now, my closing message is this, is for you men out there, find your purpose. Don't worry about these intersexual dynamics. Just find your purpose, be on your purpose, and build up your life, build up your world. And that is what you should do. This was a very entertaining video. I love all three of these guys. I think they're awesome. You guys are awesome. And I hope they continue to put content like this out there. Kai, thanks for the retweets, my dude. And perhaps we'll get another one with this video. We shall see. Thank you to all the people who have decided to support this new channel that has just opened up. When did I start this? About a month ago. So I hope you're subscribed. I hope that you comment and like, because, well, subscribing makes you feel good. And I try and comment to all the comments. And I didn't say this before. Working out is not GA. Well, I did say this, but I did want to close with this as well. I couldn't disagree with what Beardson said more about working out. I don't think it's GAY. I think it's the opposite. I think you could make a case that receiving tip money on streams is way more GAY than working out would ever be. So we shall see what happens after this. And like I said, this was excellent content, and I was happy to watch it. And I think ultimately, regardless of the slight disagreement, the fact that they are sitting together and chatting as three awesome men, that is all that matters. All right, guys, hit that subscribe button. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. And facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. See y'all next time on the Life as a Chat YouTube channel. Bye.